lot of us, we get so caught up in our failures when we try to be successful in creating new habits or breaking off old habits that we start beating ourselves up for it when we're not successful. Like, it took me 3 years on NoFap for me to hit 30 months, not 30 months, 30 days without beating my meat. Like 3 years of NoFap. And it took me 2 years of going to the gym inconsistently before I started hitting the gym consistently. This took me like what, 4 or 5 years of like doing these drugs, like smoking and drugs and stuff, before I finally quit, before I finally got rid of it altogether. Because change takes time. That's the first step. You need to understand that change takes time. It's going to take you a while before you actually make changes, because how long did it take you to actually get those changes in the first place? NoFap is the easiest one just because it's the first one I thought about. Most boys, most young men are watching pornography by the age of like 11, 12 years old, and then they continue doing that all the way through their like adult years of life. So if you have this 30-year-old dude who's been watching porn for like the past 10 years of his life, and he wants to quit his addiction, he wants to stop, but he gets frustrated because he can't quit. Like, he'll go 10 days without watching it, and then he'll just relapse and go on like a watching binge, and like he gets upset at himself for doing that. But the problem is, like, if you spent 10 years on a habit, building a habit, it might take you just as long to quit that habit. If it takes you a year to develop this like addiction to smoking and vaping, it might take you a year to stop. You can't beat yourself up for not being able to meditate for longer than a minute when you've never meditated in your life. You can't beat yourself up for not being able to wake up early when you've slept in most of your life. You've been waking up at 1, 2 p.m. your whole life. Now you want to try getting up early because you get advice online from people saying if you wake up early, you're more productive. And so you try waking up early, but you're not able to. And you need to understand that it's okay. It's going to take some time. There's two versions of yourself, right? There's version 1, which is you right now, where you're not able to break the habits you want to break. You can't make the changes you want to make in your life because for some reason, like, you just have this whole bunch of resistance coming towards you that's making it almost impossible for you to change. And there's this person right here. This is you in the future who is actually sticking to their habits, who actually made change in their life and made it permanent. And you need to figure out, what do I need to do to make it easier for me to become this person? What you need to do is you need to destroy this first version of yourself. You need to destroy it completely. You need to have the new identity of this person. Like, for example, let's say you're just let's say you're trying to stop smoking weed, right? But you keep smoking weed, you like go 3 days without smoking, and then you just want to go smoke again. And it's like you get so up in your head thinking, bro, I can't stop smoking weed, like it's so hard for me to stop. You need to like change the language of what you tell yourself. If you're telling yourself you can't quit smoking weed, what is that doing to your subconscious head? You're telling yourself directly that you can't stop, so you're not going to stop. You need to change the language that you speak to yourself in, and by the way you do that is by changing your identity. If you want to stop smoking, you don't just say, I'm trying to stop smoking. You want to say stuff like, I don't smoke. If you're struggling with consistency in the gym, don't just tell yourself that I'm bad at going to the gym consistently. Tell yourself, I go to the gym on a daily basis. Like, this is just who you are. This is your new identity, and you need to adopt it. You need to embrace it so that you can actually make the change permanent. The only exception is that you need to be capable of creating that change. You are capable of it, but don't just spout some nonsense saying, yeah, by the end of this year, I'm going to put on 30 pounds of muscle. Like, you have to be actually realistic. That's not realistic. You want to lower the resistance it takes you to go from this person to this person. And by doing that is by making the habit enjoyable. If you don't want to do something, but you force yourself to do it because everybody talks about the benefits of it, you're never going to stay consistent. Me, I've learned about yoga, right? I hear about like the benefits of yoga, how you need to be stretching and stuff, but I've just never like enjoyed it. So I've never actually gotten consistent with it. Like, I know, like I hear like all the benefits from people saying, yo, you need to do yoga, bro. You need to be stretching every day, but it's like, it's not enjoyable. So I've never actually been able to stay consistent with it. But you can change that. Like, if you have a habit that you really want to do, like you really want to start reading, but you just can't find like any enjoyment from it, well, then why don't you motivate yourself with something you like doing as well? Like, let's say you want to start reading so you can learn more. Why don't you instead of having to just read, why don't you like listen to an audiobook for it and go on like a walk or something? Like you enjoy walking, so why not actually have like an audiobook playing while you're walking, so that way it makes it easier for you to actually listen instead of like having to sit down and focus on like a book. Or you can actually make yourself read, like after like you finish a book, you can go reward yourself to like ice cream or something. Make it as easy for you as possible to stay consistent and reward yourself when you actually do stay consistent, because you're not going to be perfect. Like don't think that you're just gonna wake up one day and you're just gonna be like on this consistent streak where you go the entire year straight without missing a workout, the entire year straight without missing a meditation practice. Like that's not going to happen if we're being realistic. But when you zoom out and see that, wow, in the last 30 days I meditated 10 times, that's a lot better than the month before where I meditated 2 times. So you want consistent growth, that's what you want to aim for. You don't want to like always be perfect. Like this is a term that the fitness community knows the most. It's like called progressive overload. And what that means is, let's say you go and you hit squats for 200 pounds for 5 reps, and you do that for this week. Next week you want to progressively overload so that you're increasing the resistance just a little bit so that you're still growing. Because you know, if you consistently hit 200 pounds of squats for 5 reps continuously, you're going to remain the same size for the rest of your life. Like you're not going to grow in size, you're not going to shrink either. So if you want more growth, what you would do is increase either the weight, you might add like 5 extra pounds to it and hit it for 5 reps, or you can hit the same amount of weight but you can increase the reps. So like you increase it to 6 reps, you increase it to 7 reps. That's the same way with the habits you're trying to build. Like let's say you want to start reading, right? You want to actually read more. Instead of trying to hit a book a week, which is like probably like, it sounds really unrealistic for you at the moment, why don't you try reading 5 pages just today? Like if you're just starting out reading, 5 pages is a lot easier to manage than reading a whole book. So you'll read your 5 pages, then maybe you can aim for reading 6, then go eat 7, then 8. And what you'll find is that you'll naturally, the little bits of progress you make, it adds up over time where you've made a giant change. And what you want to focus on is the consistency of reading instead of the outcome, because it's nice to reach the outcome, right? Like reading a book a week, hitting the gym and having like a 6-pack. It's nice to have that, but you don't want to focus on the end result, because once you see that you're doing something but you're not giving the result you want, you're going to feel unmotivated of actually wanting to change. So what you want to focus on is enjoying the process and focusing on consistency. Because if you read just for the sake of reading, just for the sake of being consistent, reading like at least 5 pages a day, you'll naturally get your results without even trying, without even thinking about it. And like if you go to the gym like 3 or 4 times a week, you'll feel good about going to the gym, you'll feel motivated to go back to the gym. And what you'll find is that the more consistent you are, you'll naturally get the body that you want. The only exception to this, which is going to make your life so much easier, is to focus on one habit at a time. Focus on making one change at a time, because I know you're going to feel like a superhuman at times where you feel so motivated and you're going to be like, yo, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm going to go for a run as soon as I wake up, and then go take a cold shower, and then I'm going to read for an hour, then I'm going to go hit the gym. Like it sounds nice, it sounds super like productive, but you're going to burn yourself out by making so many changes at the same time. You want to give your body time to adapt without letting it freak out, because it's going to freak out if it gets all these different changes at once, because you're completely altering the person you currently are, and the person you currently are does not align with the person you want to be. So you need to like spoon feed it little changes at a time, little habits at a time. So if you want to stay consistent in the gym, you want to start reading, you want to get on NoFap, choose what is the most important goal for you at this moment and stick to that for like a month straight without anything else. So let's say if reading is your focus, you want to read more, focus 1 month just on reading, just building up your focus on reading more, you know, building up that habit of reading more. And once you've made some consistent progress in it, usually by the end of 1 month, you'll actually be able to stay consistent with this. That's when you'll add like the other habits that you want. Now you can actually start going to the gym consistently. And so you do that. And once you're in the gym consistently, then you can focus on fixing your sleep and sleeping at a schedule consistently. Then you can fix other aspects in your life. That way, when you're like trickling down these changes into your life, your body adapts. Because it's like this, right? Imagine you're sitting in a room that is freezing cold, like it's 50 degrees right now, and you turn on the heating, right? You turn on the heating for 80 degrees, you're going to feel that heat immediately, right? Because it's such a big change. But if it's 50 degrees right now and you turn it up to 51, you're not going to feel anything. Turn it up to 52, you still won't feel anything. You do it 1 degree at a time. Eventually, when you hit like 80 degrees, you're going to realize, wait, I'm no longer cold anymore. That's basically how you need to trick your mind into adopting these habits, because if you try doing it all at once, your body's going to freak out on you. So you need to you need to turn up the thermometer just like 1 degree at a time. Another thing you can do to make changes last is to replace the habit entirely. Because what you'll find is that your body doesn't actually crave a certain type of drug. It craves the feeling it gets from it. So for example, I stopped drinking coffee, right? Because I just wanted to stop drinking coffee. It was actually making like a big impact on my mental well-being. I stopped drinking it, but I still felt this urge to drink something hot in the morning. It's like that's probably the hardest part of it, is that I can stop drinking coffee, but I still feel like drinking something, right? So instead of like not drinking anything at all, I've replaced coffee with like herbal tea. So I'm drinking like this like lemon tea that I brew myself every morning. By drinking tea, I'm still getting that warm, cozy feeling I get from drinking coffee, but instead of coffee, I've replaced it with tea. You can completely change what your body craves just by like swapping it out for a different habit. There was this psychologist named Pavlov, and what he did was he brought this dog in and he would ring a bell. And every time he rang the bell, he would give the dog food and the dog would start salivating. And so this went on to the point where every time this dog would hear the bell ring, it would start salivating because it knows that every time I hear the bell ring, there's food coming. And so what Pavlov did was take away the food, right? He took away the meat, and he would notice that even if he rang the bell, the dog will still salivate even if there's no food around, because he's learned to associate this bell with food. That's the same thing you want to do with these habits. If you get the urge to smoke a cigarette, smoke a weed, you can replace that urge with something else. This is one of the ways I learned to get over my porn addiction, was every time I would get these urges to fap, I've recognized that this urge that I'm getting, and I would use that urge to just go work out, go on a run. What that naturally did was that every time this urge would come up, I've conditioned my brain to realize this urge is not for fap. This urge is not for porn. This urge is to go out and run. You're literally rewiring your brain to crave different substances that you otherwise wouldn't have if you hadn't recognized it. And the last thing you want to do if you want to make more changes in your life is to fail more. Instead of seeing your failures as failures, like, man, I can't even go 3 days consistently meditating. Look at your failures as opportunities to grow. Okay, because you can see, okay, I went 3 days meditating and I messed up on the 4th day. Journaling is great for this. You can ask yourself questions like, why was it difficult for me to meditate today? Like, what changes were in my life that made it hard for me to meditate? And what can I do to make it so that this does not happen again? So that it's easier for me to meditate again. Maybe I can reward myself. Maybe I can put a reminder on my wall to make me meditate. Maybe I can have my alarm go off and my alarm tells me to meditate in the morning. So you can do all these little things to make it easier for you to stay consistent. That way you're reducing your chances of failing. And when you fail again, you just repeat the process until you get to the point where you're actually consistent with your habits. And that's how you make changes that last in your life.